Hi, I'm James Naylor Green, Professor of Brazilian History and Culture at Brown University and the National Co-Coordinator of the U.S. Network for Democracy in Brazil. This program is supported by the Washington, Brazil office. This is Brazil Unfiltered. Today, I have the enormous pleasure to interview Maria Hermínia Tavares de Almeida, who holds a doctorate in political science and is a senior researcher at the Centro Brasileiro de Análise e Planejamento, CEBRAP. She is an emerita professor of political science and former dean of the Institute of International Relations at the University of São Paulo. Among her many publications is a book co-authored with Gian Luca Gardini entitled Foreign Policy Responses to the Rise of Brazil, Balancing Power in Emerging States, published in 2016, and more recently the book Os Anos de Ouro, Ensaios sobre, democracia no Brasil, The Gilded Years, Essays on Democracy in Brazil, published in 2019. She is the former president of the Latin American Studies Association, LASA, a member of the World Bank's Chief Economics Council of Eminent Persons. She holds the National Order of Scientific Merit and received the Academic Excellence Award in Political Science granted by the Social Science Graduate Programs Association-ANPOCS in Brazil. She is presently a member of the Don Paulo Evaristo Arns Commission for the Protection of Human Rights, which is affiliated with the Washington, Brazil office. Maria Hermínia is also a member of the Latin American Program Advisory Board at the Woodrow Wilson Center. Maria Hermínia, if I may, I'm so glad you could join us today on Brazil Unfiltered.
Oh, I'm very glad to be here, Jim.
Great. Well, let's just jump right in. So what is your take on Lula's foreign policy up to now?
Yeah, it's too early to make a final judgment about that. We have only 5 months. Lula has only 5 months in government. But I think that any foreign policy can be discussed through 2 perspectives. One is the presidential diplomacy, and the other is the diplomacy, professional diplomacy. I think that what presidents do, and Lula does with efficiency, is to build the country's image in the international scene, to be a kind, to impersonate the nation, its values, its principles, its interests. There are presidents that like to do this. I think that Lula likes to do this. Cardoso liked to do this. There are some presidents that are not very happy in this role. I think Dilma was not very happy to do this. And other presidents also don't, and then what both the professional diplomats, the professional diplomacy, and the presidential diplomacy, what they both are doing is to bring back Brazil to its traditional foreign policy values and behavior. And which are they? Which are those values? Peace, universalism, multilateralism, the negotiation of conflicts, active participation in world affairs. Actually, what both are doing is an effort to reconstruct our international image, to say, well, reconstruct the trust in the country by international partners, to reconstruct our bilateral relations, our respectability and tradition of cooperation inside multilateral organizations. All this has been severely damaged under Bolsonaro, and I think that what both professional diplomats and the president are trying to say, well, Brazil is here as it has with its traditional face, which its traditional foreign policy, and Brazil wants to be heard about important international issues. And I think that up to now, it's not for me to evaluate. Maybe you outside Brazil can evaluate better than I. But I think the effort is this, and we hope it's working.
So, like following Bolsonaro's really radical international positions, what would you identify as the specific priorities for the new government's foreign policy in terms of reconstructing bridges with other countries? Do you have any specific points?
Yes, I think that Brazil has an important asset, which is environment. Brazil is middle power. It doesn't have military power, but the environment is an issue where Brazil can sit in the high table, and all the high tables around the world, because you don't have a solution for climate change, for protection of biodiversity without Brazil. And I think that this is the main issue, the new issue, I think, in the Brazilian foreign policy. And I think that this also connects with domestic policy in a virtuous way. It helps environmental domestic policies to have to be proactive in the international arena where this issue is discussed and decided. And this is new. Of course, Brazil deals with environmental issues since 1992 in the Rio Conference, but I think the emphasis is new. It has to do what changes inside Brazil, has to do with the disaster that Bolsonaro provoked in this area, but also I think it's a new sensibility regarding this so important problem.
So I'm going to come back in a few minutes to another question related to the money that the United States has pledged to Brazil. But let's go on to something that's become controversial in the last few weeks in the press, both in Brazil and internationally, because Lula has got a lot of criticism for what some might argue is an ambiguous position towards Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. So why do you think Lula has been so reluctant to condemn Russia, and what do you think are the implications for Brazil, especially regarding U.S.-Brazil relations?
You see, it's difficult to understand what moves Lula and Celso Amorim in this issue. It's clearly an issue where Brazil doesn't have a strong stake, doesn't have strong stakes. We are not security. We are not a military power. I don't think that we can really have an important contribution for peace. Of course, peace is a basic value of Brazilian foreign policy, but I don't think that we can really do something important in this issue. I think probably we have two factors, I would say. One is that the international arena has changed, and for recently, for the first time, we have two great powers that are in a tense relations, and Brazil wants to take advantage of this in one way, and to establish its autonomy regarding both poles, both powers. I think that this is a delicate balance It's not easy to do it, and I think that Lula has not done so well in trying to say, well, we are not going to align with the United States, and in doing so, it gave the impression of being too much pro-Russia. On the other hand, I think there's something from the past, the Brazilian independent foreign policy, maybe is in the back of Celso Amorim, for instance. The first positions of Celso Amorim were very similar to some of the classic North American realists regarding the war. Mersheimer, for instance, has said, well, this has to do with OTAN, with NATO expansion. And so I think there's something of the old rhetoric that is creating noise in this issue. I think this is not good for Brazil. One of the subjects, the issues that are important in the new Brazilian international image is defense of democracy. I think that Lula has to say about that. We have gone through a very difficult process of defeating a candidate of an authoritarian candidate. And so I think this is not good for Brazil. On the other hand, I think that the United States-Brazilian relations are very complex. They have several dimensions, and they are mature relations between one great power and a middle power that wants to have some autonomy to act in the international sphere. And I think this Ukrainian issue causes noise, but there are other important points of convergence between the United States and Brazil that will be much more important than the Brazilian stand on Ukrainian war. I don't know, and this is, on the other hand, I think that the Brazilian foreign policy, the Brazilian foreign policy makers, and also Lula himself are pragmatic. And I think that as the reaction has been very strong against this kind of ambiguity regarding Russia, I think that very soon Brazil will come to a more reasonable position regarding the war. A war we don't like, but a war we don't have anything to contribute to end.
So Amorim at one moment made a statement indicating the possibility that Brazil might be able to work with China and the proposal of China to engage in negotiations, although some international observers point out that China is closely aligned with Russia and therefore is not a neutral party. Given the relationship between Brazil and the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa group, which is now a bank, and the former President Dilma Rousseff is the president of the new bank. What might be the way that Brazil, which is on one level connected to the BRICS and to this collaboration with a government that many would argue is authoritarian, what is the possibility of their being able to intervene and broker a peace? Do you think there's any viable, realistic possibility of that happening, or is that just a gesture to show Brazil's willingness to be independent?
I don't know. I think it's a kind of naivete. You know Brazil. Sometimes Brazilians think that themselves are much more important than we really are in international politics. I think that BRICS is an important economic coalition. I think it cannot be any other thing besides being an economic coalition, because we don't have nothing to do with the Chinese political system, with Russian political system. Brazil is a democracy, is an important democracy, wants to continue to be a democracy. So we must find a way to balance both relations. We have lots of things, lots of affinities with the United States and Europe regarding democracy, and we have lots of economic interests with Asia, not only with China, which is today our first trade partner, but also with several other Asian countries. So it's a new situation, actually, for the country, and I don't think we have already arrived to a balanced position regarding this. I think this will. I'm optimist. I think this will eventually happen, but I think we will see lots of slips in the process.
So when Celso Amorim announced his policies, his overtures towards looking for a peace in the Ukraine, he pointed out that the United States, the support that the United States gave for democracy in Brazil didn't mean that there was an agreement signed between the two countries. And I think he's referring to the fact that the Biden administration sent out very clear warnings to the military in Brazil that they would not accept any interference and any attempt of a coup d'etat. The Congress, the US Congress made some very clear statements and a similar line defending democracy in Brazil, I think partially because of the trauma of what the Trump government did to attack democracy in the United States. Would you say that was a rejection of the United States or a slap in the face of the United States to make that comment? I don't think that would have been Celso Amorim's intention as the special international advisor to Lula, but how was that understood internationally when that kind of gesture of support for democracy?
I think it's a difficult and not a difficult gesture to I think Amorim is a kind of old school Brazilian diplomat. He was trained to negotiate with the United States, to confront sometimes the United States. All his generation was trained to do that. All Brazilian diplomacy of his generation and several others were trained to confront the United States, to state Brazil's autonomy regarding the United States, and this is showing now when the situation has changed. Amorim is a trained diplomat. I think that eventually he will understand that things have changed. But I think that his default, as for several other Brazilian diplomats, is to say, "Well, United States, no, let's not give the impression that we were going to align always in every circumstances. I think that Lula's government and also Amorim should recognize that the American government reaction to during the elections were very important to us, very, very important. Not only the Biden recognizing immediately the results of the elections, which have been contested by Bolsonaro, but also the position of representatives of some part of the public opinion that knows something about Brazil, and that was very, very important for us who have opposed Bolsonaro, who were afraid what could happen and what he could do after losing the elections. And I think that the Amorim shouldn't say what he said. He has said, and I think that maybe, you see, another issue that has been very, very debated in Brazil was the effort of Brazil to mediate the Iran, United States conflict regarding the nuclear development of Iran in the past. And I think that that Amorim didn't still understood what happened, because when things, the problem got on the table, wow, they say, okay, thank you, Turkey, thank you, Brazil, but now the adults are in the room. And I think that in security issues, we are not sufficiently adult to be in the room. I think in environmental issues, in issues that have to do with food security, and of course in regional issues in South America, we are entitled to be in the room, and we have the assets to be in the room. So I think it's a faux pas, I would say.
Recently, people have analyzed the fact that the Biden administration has increased an original promise of $50 million to the Amazon Fund to increase that to $500 million, which is a significant increase. And many observers in Brazil and outside have argued this was because Lula spent a day or two in Washington, D.C., but then spent a week in China and was able to scare the Biden administration into upping their donations. And I don't have any inside information about what's going on in the White House to know what the conversations were, but I'm curious to know if you have any impressions about that analysis, saying that there's a cause and effect between
political scientists are very prudent in establishing this kind of causal relations. Maybe it was an inducement, an incentive by the administration to increase the support for Amazon. But I think this is a game very difficult to play. So I would, if I were my government's advisor, which I'm not, I would not advise to use this strategy too often. You see, it can play against us. On the other hand, of course, resources are very welcome. The Amazon is a very, very difficult problem to solve. You have strong interests that are allied in the Amazon and are against the protection of the indigenous population and also of the rainforest. you have crime, you have interests that are not criminal, but also allied to crime. So we need, in Brazil, can do this alone. Brazil needs all the resources it can receive, it can take to tackle with this problem that, on the other hand, is not only a Brazilian problem, it's not only an Amazonian problem, it is also a world problem.
So what do you think that the foreign agreements and deals that Lula has been making, traveling abroad, he's done a lot of traveling in his first 5 months in power, do you think they can be converted into political benefits back at home? I mean, other than, this feeling that many people had of pointing to Lula as a shrewd politician for having forced the Biden administration to increase temporary stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that under Bolsonaro, and probably also due the fact that he had a very destructive policies regarding the environment in general, and especially in the Amazon, the public opinion awareness of the importance of this issue has increased a lot. It's not only the environmentalist movements today. There's a huge portion of the public opinion, of the entrepreneurs, of the intellectuals that understand that this is a huge problem, and this is also a huge asset for Brazil. And so everything that results in helping to deal with the Amazon problem, I think will increase the positive image of the government. Of course, this is a very difficult beginning. It's very different from 2002 or from 2008 or from 2010. Now we have much stronger right and extreme right politics. The relations to the Congress are much more difficult than in the past. And so if the government can win important things through his foreign policy, especially regarding the Amazon, I think that will have a positive effect on his image.
So you are a member of the Arns Commission. For our listeners who might not be familiar with that, Archbishop Arns was a very, very important human rights activist in São Paulo during the dictatorship, a really amazing figure doing many things. And the commission, as I understand it, is to really maintain the legacy of the fight in the defense of human rights, and specifically to tackle the challenges of recent years. And so I guess I want to ask you what you think were some of the things that Brazil needs to do in the post-January 8th invasion of the government buildings in Brasilia. What does the government need to do to protect and ensure democracy in Brazil?
Yes, I think there are several things. I think the big issue is how you can depolarize, how you can de-radicalize a society that is deeply divided, and how can you contain the extreme right movements that show what they can do in January 8th. There has been during the Bolsonaro, and I can understand why we could do this, the Congress approved a law that replaced the old national security law that came from the military, which is called the Law for the Protection of Estado de Direito and
Rule of law.
the rule of law and democracy. And this is a very progressive legislation. There are things that Bolsonaro has vetoed and can be bring to discussion in the next month, including some provisions to deal with communication, with fake news, with use of social network. So I think there is a lot, still something to do in the realm of legal changes. This is one point. There's a discussion here in Brazil. The people that in law schools and all that are looking towards Germany with the idea that the idea of militant democracy, of protecting democracy with the tools of law can be important. I think this is one thing. The other one has to do with the capacity to talk to people that don't agree with government, talk to people that don't that voted for Bolsonaro but don't belong to the extreme right. And this, I think, the government is learning how to do it, and also society is learning how to do it. Organizations like the Arns Commission is discussing what can we do to create spaces where different positions can be debated without conflict, without a conflictual attitude, see? And I don't know, maybe we can learn something about what is happening also in the United States, in other countries that have the same problem. Here, we must learn to talk to new Pentecostal believers that don't like the identity politics from the left. We must learn to talk to people that voted for Bolsonaro because they don't like the PT but are not extreme right. It's a difficult process, and I think that organizations of civil society maybe can help to do that. On the other hand, there are very important issues of and basic issues of human rights that Brazil never tackle adequately, and that still have to be confronted.
I'm really struck. I was in Brazil in 2022 for the elections. I taught at the Institute for Foreign Relations, Instituto de Relações Internacionais at the University of São Paulo. And what was striking to me in talking to people, mostly Uber drivers or taxi drivers, was the tremendous polarization and the reliance on false information, listening to Jovem Pan radio station and everyone repeating the same thing, every driver. I really am very exacerbated by this situation, and see it's going to be very difficult because we're facing the exact same problem in the United States, of a consolidated sector of the right which does not listen to anything other than their own social media and believes in lots and lots of things which are absolutely false and untrue. And so I think it's a big challenge we face not only in Brazil, but in the United States and other parts of the world. But no easy
Yes,
answer.
I have Felipe Nunes, who runs Public Opinion Polls, said you have two different the society is the one that reads the Gazeta do Povo, hears the Rádio Jovem Pan, and belongs to certain social networks, and the others who read the Folha de São Paulo and see Globo News and all that, and they live in different countries.
It's very.
This is really a challenge.
In fact, there's a conservative backlash against left-inclined governments that's gaining momentum throughout Latin America, from Argentina, Colombia, Chile, and Peru. The fact that 2 days ago, the Chileans approved delegates to the Constituent Assembly to write a constitution, which are extremely conservative people who will be there writing the Chilean constitution. So what can the Lula government learn from what's happening in other parts of Latin America, South America?
Well, I think that one lesson we all can learn is that the left is not the majority of our society, and so we must learn to work with the center, with other people that are not left-wing, because when the left thinks, due to the fact that they have won elections and all that, it can go alone, it doesn't work. I think this is the first lesson of what happened to Chile. You see, actually, Boric had 28% in the first round, and that is the voters that are really for this renovated left, which I think he represents very, very well. And then there has been the Constitution, and they thought that they could do the Constitution of our dreams. It's not that, you see. And well, and I think that in Brazil also we must be very, very conscious that we won the elections for a tiny difference, the tiniest difference ever, and that we must learn to work with democratic center, with people that are not left-wing. And it's not easy because on the other hand, the left cannot desistir, not cannot deny that there are certain values and certain rights that belong to our tradition, and we cannot abandon that. We cannot abandon anti-racism. We cannot abandon the rights of women, of LGBTI plus. Yeah, you see, and this is an important agenda, and this is taking human rights to its is being consequential in fighting for human rights, and we cannot abandon that. But we can kind of try to argue and to discuss and to try to convince some part, at least, of the public opinion. We must be very respectful to those that don't have the same values we have. But it's easy to talk to, it's easy to say, not easy to do. And so we are learning.
So are you optimistic about the future for Brazil or pessimistic?
It depends on the day. I think that there is a lot of strength in our country, and a lot of diversity, and diversity is important. important asset to have, but also there are tremendous challenges to confront. Inequality in Brazil, you know Brazil very well. It's incredibly deep and incredibly high, and poverty is pervasive, and it's very difficult to build democracy, to build respect to human rights when you have such a divide in society. So it's not easy.
On top of that, the economic challenges of the government, the amount of crime that's increased, and it's very shocking for that too. And many challenges of things to come up with solutions for the problems of the country.
Yes, I think, this is the best PT government we had. When you look to the ministers, to the secretaries, you have 5 that have been governors of different states. Mm-hmm. This means an experience the previous secretaries didn't have. I think you have on the other hand, all that happened in the last 10 years had an impact in Lula, in his inside group, but I think that basically PT is a pragmatic movement, and this sometimes is bad, but sometimes it's very good. You see, it's different from Chile. I have lived in Chile a long time ago, and in Chile, ideology is much more cutting than in Brazil, and so it's much more difficult to converge, to produce consensus. And I think pragmatism in Brazil sometimes is good, if you don't exaggerate.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Brazil Unfiltered today. It was a real honor to have you with us.
I'm very glad to be here. I was willing to be invited. It's a great pleasure to talk to you, Jimmy. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the interview. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to like the video. And if you've not yet subscribed, please do so. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps other people find the program. Have a great week. Until next time, até a próxima.